My name is Michelle Baltz. I am the solid waste manager for Hamilton County Resource, and we are the solid waste district for Hamilton County, Ohio. Today, we're going to be talking about building organics processing capacity in Hamilton County. We're going to go over a little bit about Hamilton County and our organics processing study that we did, and then about the request for interest that we have out to hopefully get some partners to build a public-private partnership composting facility somewhere in the Southwest Ohio region. So I'll be talking a little bit about our study and some of the data going into what the RFI entails, and then we will have some time at the end for questions. If you have questions while we're going, you can hop into the Q&A box and type in a question. And Elise and Mary are here to, if they can't answer it, they will go ahead and put an answer right in, or we will hit those questions at the end and make sure we answer them all. So when we are, let's see if I can, there we go. So Hamilton County, Ohio, we are in the southwest corner of Ohio. We are bordered by Kentucky and Indiana. Our largest municipality is the city of Cincinnati, and our population is about 830,000. However, we are part of the Cincinnati metropolitan region, which is 2.3 million. So it's larger because we do have cities around Hamilton County that are not part of Hamilton County. So, like I said, we are the solid waste district for Hamilton County, Ohio. Every county in Ohio is required to have a solid waste district or be part of a joint solid waste district. We are funded off of tipping fees to the landfill, and we do not own or operate any facilities. Historically, we have worked more in encouraging waste reduction through programs. So during our last solid waste plant update, which we are required to do every 5 years, we determined that our region needed more food scrap processing capacity in order to make any more significant strides in reducing food waste going to the landfill. So we hired a team of consultants. They were led by GT Environmental to figure out how much food scraps we are generating, how much could possibly be captured, and recommend what types of technology and facilities would best suit our region. So I'm going to spend about 5 minutes going over those findings, but the full report is available on our website if you are interested in that. So the first two chapters looked at existing processing capacity and stakeholder input. We have a not insignificant network of small-scale composters. Those are the green blocks. And note, this was about a year and a half to 2 years ago, so the map surely has changed since then, but this gives you an idea of that there is some capacity right now happening. The yellow teardrops, I guess you call them, are the class 4 facilities. So those classes represent the Ohio EPA registration level. Class 4 can accept yard trimmings for composting. Class 3 can also accept manure. And then class 2, the red ones, can accept food scraps. We had one food scrap processing facility that was at Finley Market in downtown Cincinnati. It is no longer a class 2. They are still composting, but they are no longer composting on site. This was not in the study, but I think it is really helpful to look at some of our data from our commercial and industrial survey that we do every year. These numbers are reported to Ohio EPA, and these are just the organics related numbers. And I wanted to show them purely from the perspective of that we are currently diverting a pretty significant amount of material, especially in the industrial sector. But according to the study, we are still landfilling 138,000 tons of food scraps a year. So you can see in this table, we divert a little over 17,000 tons to food rescue, almost 50,000 tons to animal feed, most of that obviously from the industrial sector. We have quite a few breweries in the area. We had a little over 7,000 tons to composting, almost all of that from the commercial residential sectors. and then quite a few, 25,000 tons to for industrial uses. So this is a lot of fats, oils, grease. So overall, almost 100,000 tons of food diverted from the landfill, and then 46,000 tons of yard trimmings composting happening. So quite a bit that is already happening. So from the study, if you look at the little graphic on the right, that shows how much our consultants estimated that we are landfilling annually. So 138,000 tons of food scraps annually. 42,000 of that is residential, 95,000 of that is commercial. So that does not include the industrial sector. Um, so the left numbers would be how much we could capture because, as you probably know, just because you generate it doesn't mean that you could actually capture it. So they looked at other successful collections around the US and estimated how much we could expect to capture. So for the commercial sector, they started with about 21,000 tons, and that was evaluating the major food waste generating businesses in our area. And then the residential is a little trickier because it depends on what type of program you have. On the low end, if we just had drop-offs where residents would bring their food scraps to a drop-off, we could expect about 1,464 tons. If we had curbside programs, significantly more at about 14,000 tons. And they estimated that we had easy access to about 21,000 tons of yard trimmings. So, Chapter 5 looked at the best technologies for an urban suburban county that would process food scraps quickly and not create odors. They recommended aerated static piles as the most efficient process. They also liked that this can be modular so that you can build more capacity over time as needed by adding more bays. Further chapters in the study looked at the footprint analysis, so how big of a piece of property would we need, also gathering stakeholder input to evaluate those different size facilities and the different options. They came up with the most viable option to have three medium-sized facilities of 6 to 8 acres would be needed. So this is a really quick overview of this study. I would highly recommend, if you've not, to take a look at it. It is available on our website. It has a lot of great information. It also includes some markets for finished compost, recipes for the compost. And the third phase of the study, which is its own separate report, it was looking at potential sites for composting. Unfortunately, one perfect site was not found, but they did evaluate potential locations and looked mostly at publicly owned and brownfield sites. So one of the recommendations of the study was to issue an RFI to find potential partners for a public-private partnership. Hamilton County has potential funding to support one or both aspects of a composting operation through this RFI. And we are seeking to determine the financial investment needed to expand food scrap processing capacity. So information that we gather through this RFI will determine if sufficient interest exists to move forward on a public-private partnership and how much investment a project like that would require from Hamilton County. So a few things about the RFI. We'll accept sites within 50 miles of the center of Cincinnati, but we would prefer closer. So this map, just for perspective, is showing you a 30-mile radius. You can do these online. We're hoping for closer, but we will look at a 50-mile radius of sites. And so this is for potential facility partners. There's two paths. There's if you have an existing composting operation or if you just have available land where you are not currently composting. And we ask for slightly different information, but these are basically the fields that you would fill out in the form. It's a very simple form. And we are looking at, say, if you had a yard trimmings composting facility, you would be interested in partnering with the county to expand it to accept food scraps, you would fill out this information. So the address of the site, the description of the current operation, the description of the site itself, an estimate of what infrastructure you think you would need to add food scraps. Obviously, we know you may not have all of those answers, but if you have an idea of what you would need, and if you would want to operate that yourself or with your staff, or if you'd want to have an outside contractor operate that. And then lastly, what ideally would you like the public-private partnership to look like? What kind of financial investment would you want from Hamilton County? How much would you want to contribute yourself? What would you see Hamilton County's responsibilities as? So this is very similar, asking you if you have available land that doesn't currently have a compost site, that we'll be asking, how are you currently using the land? Are there any restrictions on it? Are you wanting to sell the land or lease it? Or are you wanting, to operate the compost site there? Um, and what kind of roles you would see ideally from Hamilton County? And then finally, we have the compost operator path. So we are looking for potential compost operator partners. If we provided the site, would you come and operate a compost site? And what would that look like? So keep in mind, again, this RFI is exploratory. We are trying to determine if potential partners exist and how much investment Hamilton County needs to make this viable. So this would be if you were operating a 4-acre compost site that was on 6 acres, had a 2-acre buffer, and you were accepting 18,000 tons of material, 5,000 of that being food scraps. How much would it cost you to operate that site? And we know that this is ballpark. We are very much aware. When you're filling out these forms are not legally binding. We realize that that these estimates are going to be ballpark, and we realize that there's going to be significant negotiations after this point. So, right now we are really just trying to see is there interest, and if we do have interest, then the information that we gather from this will be the basis of a formal request for proposals that we would do down the road. Just a few more slides. So this one is, I wanted to mention that we have a different program completely separate from everything I've talked about so far. That is the Hamilton County Partnership for On-Farm Composting. So we've partnered with the Hamilton County Conservation District to help scale up some composting, help improve the facilities of composting on-farm composting. That is happening in tandem to this. It is not the same program. If you're interested in that, it's hamiltoncountyresource.org. You would go under the communities tab and you could see our website for that. This is a much smaller scale composting than what we're talking about with this larger building organics capacity RFI. So, how do you fill it out? How do you express your interest? You go to hamiltoncountyresource.org. Under the About tab, you will see a bid postings link, and you will see there a building composting capacity in Southwest Ohio PDF. You open that, and that has the link that you would need to fill out the form to express interest. So you can fill it out as many times as you'd like. If you have a site, if you'd also be interested in being an operator and don't have, or you just want to fill out one of those forms, you can fill it out multiple times if multiple roles apply. So after we've received those forms, so those are due April 30th. The next steps is that we will meet internally and discuss, and we'll reach out to each interested party individually to have conversations. We're hoping to gather the most information that we can so that at the May 20th Hamilton County Solid Waste Policy Committee meeting, we can talk about the level of interest. We're not going to be listing individual names or calling people out, but we're going to, say, hey, we had 4 different businesses who filled out the form who were interested in being compost operators. Or we estimate that, we would have, 3 different parties interested if we put out an RFP. And we think that probably the partnership would cost, us $5 million. Or I'm just throwing, figures out there. But we want to be able to gather information so that we can put together the best request for proposals as possible. Um, so at that point, should the policy committee decide that they want to move forward with a public-private partnership, we would need to increase our fees. And so in order for Hamilton County to invest in that, we would need to increase our fees. Right now, we are funded from tipping fees to the landfill, and we have the lowest allowable fees of a $1, $2, $1 fee. And we could, according to Ohio Revised Code, we could double that. So we could generate an additional $3.6 million a year if all three tiers were raised. There are other options that the policy committee may decide to move forward with. So we could generate various levels of revenue underneath that. One would be if we just increased that middle $2 tier out of district fees, which would generate about 2.5 million based on 2024 waste. So in order to increase the fees, we don't just flip a switch. We would have to get that fee increase ratified by Hamilton County communities. So we have 48 communities. We would have to have communities representing at least 60% of our population pass that fee increase, including the City of Cincinnati and the Board of County Commissioners. So if that fee increase passed, the next step would be to issue an official request for proposals for whatever partnership is decided upon. A few important dates here. We are in the second one, the information session. If you have questions about this, certainly you can type them in the chat right now and we'll try to answer them. But if an hour or two from now you have a question, you can email resource@hamiltoncountyohio.gov and we will respond to those questions by April 16th, likely before that, but we will gather all questions and start responding after April 9th. And if you do not have questions, but you are interested in receiving an email with all of the questions and their subsequent answers to those questions, you can also just email at resource@hamiltoncountyohio.gov, and I will add you to that list. If you ask one question, you will get your question and all of the other questions and answers that we receive. So we'll get those to you April 16th at the latest, probably earlier, but make sure you get those questions to that email address by April 9th, by the end of the day. And then all expressions of interest are due by April 30th. So you need to get on, fill out that form by April 30th at 4 p.m. in order to be part of this operation. So at this point, I will open it up and see, Elisa Mary, do we have any questions?
There are not currently any questions in the question and answer chat, but we can wait for a little bit and see if anyone posts any.
Sounds good. Can either of you think anything that I missed or glossed over that needs more explanation?
No, other than there's really no hurt if you're interested in assisting with kind of composting efforts in the county at all to fill out that form. So we encourage you to do that if you have kind of any kind of basic knowledge or interest in participating, that this really is, the best way to kind of get involved with those conversations.
I see that Sam has a question. So Michelle, what I'm going to do is unmute Sam for a second, and Sam, you should be good to talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. I think I gathered from the mention of the on-farm composting, but seems like this pathway to this eventual outcome is far less direct, and there's multiple steps along the way. So just want to make sure that applying for one or the other does not preclude an entity from submitting interest for the other.
Very good question. And you're right, it doesn't. So the on-farm composting program is much smaller scale. It is already funded, right? We already have the funds for that. That is actively going to start happening and being implemented in a much quicker timeline than this larger request for interest. So if you can definitely fill out both, if you are a farm and you are interested in both, I would highly encourage you to do both. But the current on-farm partnership is much smaller scale, and also much more immediate and is already funded. So certainly don't skip over the on-farm partnership, and just fill out the larger one if you're interested in both.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Michelle, we've gotten a couple into the question and answer section now. So someone asked, for getting 60% community buy-in for a fee increase, are there any insights as to how likely that would be to pass?
Um, I think that if we had a good plan of, that this we're going to build this facility, it's going to be great for our region. We've got a strong public-private partnership to go behind it. It's going to be great for businesses. I think that we could make a good case, and I think that we would have a very good chance of it passing. Um, but that's just my feel of it, if you want to, what you want to count that for. Um, I will say the city of Cincinnati, according to Ohio Revised Code, and the Board of County Commissioners both have veto power. So should they, even if we got 60%, if either of those entities decided they did not like the fee increase, they could vote it down.
Okay, and then Mary Lehman from Tecan Farm asked about, they're curious about contributing to the operator need and wondered if this program might include funding to expand their intern or workforce development program to increase the training of operators for other sites.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if with this larger RFI, kind of your imagination is your limit on this. So if you have a good idea of how to build that local knowledge base and continue to grow our knowledge on composting in Southwest Ohio, I would definitely encourage adding it in there, and we will have conversations with you of what you imagine it could be, because I would hate to limit our possibilities to just the imagination of our staff when we have so many wonderful people interested in this in our region.
And then we had one more question about the on-farm composting. Are there any farms already receiving funding from the on-farm partnership program?
No, the on-farm partnership that is open until April 10th. That's when we're going to start evaluating the farms that we would possibly partner with through that program. So that program is not, although it will be soon. We'll be selecting those soon.
Those are all the questions in the question and answer box. Elise, is there anyone with their hand up?
Nobody else with their hand up.
Well, we will wait for a few more minutes and then make sure that everybody's questions are answered. And certainly, again, if you find yourself with questions after this, email that resource at hamiltoncountyohio.gov, and we will certainly be responding to those. And or if you're just interested in hearing what other people are asking, you can be added to that list. And again, I highly encourage you to get on the website and look at that organic study. There's some really great
Michelle,
information. Yeah.
sorry, we did get another question. Where are all of the tons of food scraps going to come from? Will Resource help with finding these food scraps? So the source for any composting
Yeah,
operations that come to light.
that's a great question, and it's something that we are definitely going to be helping with. We do not plan on operating a hauling service, if that's what the question is, but there are currently private haulers in the area. But we work closely with businesses. Mary recently led a food waste manufacturing cohort, so we have several leads, if for lack of a better term, on some sources of organics, and know that the organics is out there and that there is interest in diverting it. So, the food manufacturers, the grocery stores, they don't like throwing the stuff away. And so we know that there's going to be more sources, and we realize that we're going to have to grow that collection infrastructure alongside the processing capacity. And so hopefully, if we do move forward with a fee increase, that we would be able to do that simultaneously in helping to build that private infrastructure. So yes, we will be helping to identify that, and we are always thinking about how to grow that. From a residential perspective, we work closely with all 48 communities, and we do have some communities who are, we've had more and more, if you look at how many food scrap drop-offs residentially. I mean, it's just growing exponentially. I think that the food scrap drop-offs is the best way to start food scrap collection for residents because you get the early adopters, the people who are really into it. So you get much less contamination. The people who really want to bring their food scraps will bring it and really listen to what you say. But then as we grow that and it becomes more of a normative behavior, then we might be able to start adding curbside collection at some point down the road, but that's far into the future. But certainly the commercial sector is our biggest kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will, sometimes literally with fruit that needs to go to compost. So we will be working on that. Hopefully that answered your question. I didn't go too off tangent. Any other questions? We'll hang out for a few more minutes, seconds, just holding on. And certainly, if this presentation has spurred some ideas, I would love to hear from you. So just let us know if you've got an idea or have you thought about this. Certainly, we would love to chat.
Mary Lehman asked if you could say more about the on-farm compost fund, and maybe kind of, this is just me, direct people where they can find more information about that.
Great. Yeah. So you can, if you go to hamiltoncountyresource.org and you go under our communities tab, we have a web page dedicated to the Hamilton County Partnership for On-Farm Composting. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what we're calling it. And so we have $1 million dedicated to that. We expect to about $200,000 for each farm. That program is not going to be like a traditional grant program where we expect a farm to come up with a grant proposal. This is truly a partnership. So we're partnered with the Hamilton County Conservation District, their agricultural specialist, and we are going to be partnering with the farm to help every step of the way. So we have hired a consultant. We're going to hire another consultant to help build a professional plan, like a professional design of the site to make sure that we're protecting the water quality, that it's the best available technology, and that it works for that farm. And we will be basically holding your hand through the process of if the site was larger than 500 square feet and you needed to become a class 2, how does that look? Partnering with local food scrap haulers to provide clean feedstock for food scraps and carbon material as well. And then also just making sure that the operation is going well. If the farm decides they want to operate it themselves, making sure they get certified compost operator training, and then also if they would rather just lease the land, making sure that anyone who would be operating it would be a certified compost operator. So it's really more of a partnership, and that's why we're calling it that. And we did an informational webinar on that, I think 2 weeks ago. And so if you go to that web page, you will be able to watch the recording on that as well.
Okay, we have, I think, two more questions, because at least I think someone had their hand up at least briefly. But there's one in the question and answer about how wide the net has been spread in terms of who this RFI has been sent to, and are we only looking for agricultural land or anyone who is a landowner?
anyone who's a landowner. Certainly, we're not only for this program, not only looking for agricultural. We sent this out nationally, so it was actually featured in Biocycle. Um, so that's why I kind of started with an overview of what Hamilton County is in case we had folks from outside this area. But we've sent it to several, organics and publications and that network. But we've also focused locally on in Ohio, getting the word out. So we've kind of hit all the different levels of promoting this RFI. I hope that does that answer the question, you think, Mary?
Yes, I think so. Um, there was someone with their hand up, but I think they might have put it down. Elise, did we?
I think I might have added it to the Q&A.
Okay. I'm answering one for Mary Lehman currently in the chat, and then um, someone else, a couple. What would happen if you got a lot of interest from either just operators or just sites, but not from the other?
I think we could balance out if we only got sites and no operators, we could do a specific targeted outreach to try to get operators. I think that if we had a site that could be a whole other national, trying to get operators, certainly we could try to do more operator training and get more locally, which is we're always trying to do. If we get just operators and no site, that's a little, a little more tricky. But certainly not. We can certainly, keep trying to find sites. But it's all good knowledge. It's all good information to have. If we have a bunch of operators, then we've got that information, and we can, more aggressively start, saying, okay, well, we're going to have to buy a site, right? We don't have anybody who's willing to offer it, so we're going to have to find it ourselves. So we're really just information gathering at this point.
And then we have a question that's trying to understand kind of our funding for this better.
Mhm.
Um, so they're interested in trying to understand what the tipping fees are that we're talking about, kind of
Mhm.
understanding that structure, I think, better. Who pays those? Who gets
Mhm.
that money? And do those tipping fees then determine how much a compost operator would be getting through this program? So a lot there, but I think the
Yeah,
essence
yeah.
is the background of the tipping fees and
Mhm.
then maybe how we'd be distributing.
Sure. So the tipping fees, it's one of the ways that solid waste districts are funded. So right now, the lowest allowable tipping fees is 121. So that's $1 for any waste that is brought to a Hamilton County landfill from within Hamilton County. $2 for anything that is outside of Hamilton County but still within the state of Ohio, and then $1 for anything out of state. And it is structured that way because you can't charge people out of state more than you charge yourself. So right now we have a 121 tipping fee, and that generates, or at least last year generated about $3.6 million. Of course, that is based on how much waste goes to the landfill. So as we decrease that waste going to the landfill, or if the economy goes down, or it does fluctuate, right? We don't always get the same amount of funds every year. Um, so those tipping fees are set by Ohio Revised Code. The lowest you can do is 121. The highest you can do with a tipping fee is 242. So that's why I said essentially if we hit the ceiling on it, if we went to the floor to the ceiling, we could generate another $3.6 million in revenue from those tipping fees. And it would be up so that we could then recommend. The Board of County Commissioners is who decides how those funds are spent. So they're the ones who actually pass the budget for Hamilton County. We are under the Board of County Commissioners, and they're the ones who would say that we would spend this on the organics. Now, I will say there are 10 allowable uses for solid waste funds, so we could not increase those fees and then buy fire trucks or, you know, whatever. We couldn't just spend it on anything. It has to be on programs that would reduce waste going to the landfill. And if the solid waste district said we're going to spend this on organics facility, then that's what we would be recommending that it be spent on. I don't think that the operation that the tipping fees would necessarily be tied to how much an operator would get paid. That would all have to be part of a negotiated, predetermined contract. That, if for some reason the part of it was that Hamilton County was paying the operator, it would not be dependent on the tipping fees. So we would just be using that as a funding source. It would not, their their pay would not be dependent on the tipping fee, if that's what the question was. Did that answer the question?
I believe so, but if anyone has clarifying questions on that, please feel free to put them in. I did answer one for Mary Lehman in the chat, but in case you have anything to add, she was just asking, since they already have compost on their site, would this still be a good program for us? She could have been referring to either the agricultural RFI or this one. I said both are open to existing compost sites that would be interested in expanding operations, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think that's a great answer.
I don't have any new ones as of right now.
Okay. Great questions. Thank you all for